There is a hidden treasury within you, richer than all the vaults of the world. It does not lie in the marketplace, nor in the hands of men, but in the unseen depths of your own mind. Tonight, I will show you how to open that invisible door, step into the abundance already prepared for you, and claim as your own the wealth that has always belonged to you. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. These words, simple though they appear, contain the entire mystery of wealth, abundance, and the possession of all good things. Many have read them as a comfort, a promise for some future life, or a vague assurance that heaven awaits after death. But I say to you tonight, they are not written of a far-off time, nor of a distant realm beyond the grave. They are present, immediate, and practical. They speak of a treasury already yours, awaiting only your recognition. For the kingdom spoken of is the sum of all riches, all dominion, all creative power, and it has already been given into your keeping. Yet men read these words and still look outward, still beg and plead, still wait for some external savior to bestow upon them what is theirs by right. They look to governments, to employers, to circumstance, to chance, to the favor of others, never realizing that the giver of all, the Father of whom Scripture speaks, is none other than their own awareness, the eternal presence whispering within them each time they declare, I am. When you say within yourself, I am, you are naming the source of wealth, the root of power, the fountain of life. You are not calling upon another, you are calling upon the only reality hidden beneath the mask of your own being. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Notice, it is not his reluctant duty, nor his sparing allowance. It is his pleasure. Pleasure is joy, delight, eagerness. Think of a loving parent who longs to see his child adorned, fulfilled, radiant, and supplied. Would he withhold the bread of life and feed his son with stones? Would he turn a deaf ear when his child hungered? No, it is his delight to give. And the kingdom spoken of is not rationed or diminished, not parceled in fragments, but entire. Every treasure of the earth, every idea of genius, every opportunity, every open door lies included in that kingdom. And it has already been given. The tragedy is not that men are denied, but that they deny themselves. The gift is poured out in fullness, but man walks in the desert with a fountain at his side, never stooping to drink. He prays for that which he already possesses. He pleads for what he holds within. In his ignorance, he makes of life a wilderness, when all along he walks in Eden. You may say, but I do not see the wealth. My purse is empty, my debts press hard upon me, my circumstances are lean. And I tell you, that is the outer shadow, the passing appearance. Scripture does not ask you to judge by appearances, but to judge righteous judgment. What is righteous judgment? To see not with the eye of flesh, but with the eye of spirit, to look beyond the seeming lack and know that beneath it stands the eternal reality. The Father's gift already yours. Let me tell you a story. A man, weary with struggle, came to me years ago. He had worked diligently, yet nothing prospered. He could not keep his household, nor pay the bills that gathered upon his table. Each day he looked at the figures and declared, I am broke, I am poor, I am defeated. He thought he was speaking truth, but in reality he was sowing seed. The I am, he uttered, clothed itself in poverty, and poverty clothed him in return. He could not see that he was, by his own confession, denying the Father's gift. I said to him, stop declaring lack, begin to declare possession. Say within yourself not once, but throughout the day, I am wealthy, I am supplied, I am heir to the kingdom. Do not ask how, do not question the method. Simply dwell in the truth that the giver of all delights in giving, and that you already hold the treasure. He resisted at first. He said, but how can I say such things when the evidence mocks me, when my cupboard is bare and the collectors pound at my door? And I reminded him of the words, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Evidence of things not seen, not yet visible to the eye. but already real. To declare, I am wealthy, in the face of emptiness is not self-deception, it is righteous judgment. It is lifting the inner eye above shadows to behold the light that casts them. He obeyed reluctantly yet persistently. For weeks, every morning, every evening, he clothed his mind with wealth. He walked in imagination through his home as though it were richly furnished. He heard the voices of friends congratulating him on his success. He saw his table laden with abundance. Slowly, the atmosphere of his mind changed. Where once there had been complaint, now there was thanksgiving. Where once there had been despair, now there was expectancy. And then, without his lifting a finger to scheme, doors began to open. An old acquaintance, remembering a favor long forgotten, invited him into a venture that flourished. In less than a year, he was not merely solvent but prosperous. And he testified, it came not by toil, but by a change in vision. I ceased to see myself poor, and the world ceased to echo poverty. This is the meaning of the scripture. The Father does not decide one day to give and another day to withhold. The gift is perpetual, eternal, unchanging. The question is only whether you will accept or reject it in consciousness. Every time you say, I am weak, I am poor, I am in lack, you refuse the gift. Every time you say, I am strong, I am wealthy, I am supplied, you stretch forth your hand and receive it. Do you not see how simple, yet how profound this mystery is? The giver is within you. The giving is ceaseless. The only limit lies in your acceptance. Consider the parable of the prodigal son. He took his inheritance and squandered it in a far country until he was destitute, longing to eat even the husks of swine. Yet when he remembered his father's house, he said, I will arise and go unto my father. And the father, seeing him afar off, ran to him, embraced him, clothed him with a robe, placed a ring on his finger, and shoes upon his feet. The fatted calf was slain, and there was feasting and rejoicing. What is this story but the drama of your own soul? You, wandering in the far country of limitation, imagining yourself cut off, have wasted your inheritance in thoughts of lack and unworthiness. Yet the moment you turn inward and remember, it is my Father's good pleasure to give me the kingdom, that very moment you are clothed anew. The robe of wealth, the ring of authority, the shoes of dominion are yours again. The Father does not chastise, does not withhold, but rejoices in giving. For his pleasure is to see you adorned with abundance. Do not mistake me. Wealth is not confined to coins and notes, though these are included. Wealth is the fullness of life in every dimension. Ideas flowing freely, doors opening smoothly, friendships rich and harmonious, health radiant, opportunities plentiful, substance abounding. To limit wealth to money alone is to mistake the shadow for the substance. Money is but one form of wealth, a convenient symbol. But the true wealth is the consciousness of abundance. When you possess that, the symbols flow without strain. Think of Joseph in Egypt, cast into prison, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten by men, yet inwardly he never abandoned the sense of dominion. In his dreams he saw the sheaves bowing, the stars paying homage. He knew that the kingdom had been given, and though the outer circumstance mocked him, inwardly he wore the robe. In time, the outer had no choice but to conform. He rose from prisoner to prince, from bondage to authority, and the famine that swallowed nations could not touch him. Why? Because he lived by the Father's gift, not by appearances. So too with you. When you say within yourself, I am wealthy, you are not pretending. You are aligning with the eternal truth that the kingdom is already yours. Do not wait for evidence to permit you to believe. Believe, and the evidence will follow. For the unseen governs the seen, the eternal shapes the temporal, the invisible writes the script that the visible world must perform. Now, some of you may ask, if this is so, why then are there so many poor, so many struggling, so many denied? And I say to you, they are not denied by the giver, but by their own disbelief. They persist in the confession of lack, and so they reap lack. They live in the far country of husks when the banquet waits at home. The Father's table is never bare, the feast is ever spread. But man will not come to the table, preferring to wander hungry in the fields of illusion. I tell you tonight, you need not wander. You may rise now, in this very moment, and declare, I am heir to the kingdom. It is my Father's good pleasure to give me all. And if you hold fast to this inner confession, if you feed upon it as daily bread, you will see the shadow of your world rearrange. Money will come when needed. Opportunities will rise in unexpected places. The right people will appear at the right hour. Circumstance will bow to your inner decree, for the decree was spoken by the only true power, the I am within. I once knew a woman who longed for a home of her own. She lived in rented rooms, cramped and dreary, with no means to purchase a house. Yet she took to heart this truth. Each night she lay upon her bed and imagined herself lying in her own home. She felt the softness of the carpet beneath her feet, smelled the fragrance of flowers in her garden, heard the laughter of friends gathered in her living room. She never once allowed the thought, I cannot afford it, to take root. Instead, she said within herself, it is already mine. My Father has given me the kingdom. Within months, through a series of events she could never have contrived, she was led to a house beyond her expectation, and the means to purchase it came without struggle. She testified that it was not her doing, but the gift already given, which she at last dared to accept. This is why Scripture says, let the weak say, I am strong. Notice, it does not say, let the weak ask to be made strong. It does not say, let the weak wait for strength. It says, let the weak say, I am strong. For the saying is the accepting, and the accepting is the possessing. In the same manner, let the poor say, I am rich. Let the defeated say, I am victorious. Let the lonely say, I am beloved. For in the saying lies the receiving, and in the receiving lies the manifestation. If you understand this, you will never again beg for wealth, never again plead for opportunity, never again complain of lack. You will know that the kingdom has already been given, that the giver delights in giving, and that your only task is to accept in consciousness. Accept not tomorrow, but now. Accept not with wavering, but with certainty. Say within yourself, I am supplied, I am abundant, I am heir to all riches, and let that truth clothe your mind. For as you clothe your mind, so shall your world be clothed. The law of life is this: as within, so without. The inner world of thought and feeling is the seed, the outer world of circumstance and event is but its unfolding harvest. Nothing appears in your experience that has not first been conceived in the invisible workshop of mind. The world you walk through each day is your own consciousness objectified. You may not recall planting certain seeds. You may not remember the thought sound in moments of idle acceptance. Yet every blade that springs forth bears witness to an unseen sowing. If you will grasp this, you will cease to regard life as a matter of luck, chance, or the favors of men. You will know that the creative power resides not in external circumstance, but in the states you occupy inwardly. The law is impartial. It does not ask whether you would prefer wealth over want, joy over sorrow, success over failure. It only asks what state you dwell in. For the state precedes the fact, and the fact must mirror the state. There was once a man who constantly affirmed to himself, everything always goes wrong for me. He thought this harmless, even humorous, for he spoke it lightly among his friends. But the law takes no account of jest. It hears only the assumption clothed in feeling. And so he reaped a harvest of broken plans, missed opportunities, and disappointments. He asked, why am I cursed? He was not cursed, he was simply faithful to his assumption. For the law cannot be mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Now contrast this with another man who inwardly declared, regardless of appearances, everything works out in my favor. He did not say this once, but clothed himself daily in that feeling. His friends mocked him when he faced setbacks, but he remained unmoved. In time, the crooked way straightened, the closed doors opened, the very disappointments turned into blessings. He lived the truth of his assumption because he understood the inner law. Scripture states, "The kingdom of God is within you." If the kingdom is within, then its laws must be within as well. The law of assumption is the law of the kingdom. Assume the state you desire, persist in it, and you will see it manifest. To dwell in poverty of mind and expect riches is as foolish as sowing thorns and expecting roses. To dwell in abundance within, to feel yourself surrounded by prosperity, is to sow wealth, and wealth must appear. Consider a merchant who wishes his trade to flourish. Outwardly, the market may be slow, his sales few, his debts pressing. If he judges by sight alone, he will despair. But if he knows the law, he will withdraw from appearances and assume inwardly that his business prospers. He will walk in imagination through crowded aisles, hear the clink of coins, see the smiles of satisfied customers. He will persist in this state until it feels natural. And when it does, the law must bring outer evidence. It may open through unexpected advertisement, through word of mouth, through new partnerships. The channel is not his to choose, the harvest is sure. The law requires fidelity of mind. One cannot assume wealth today, poverty tomorrow, abundance the next day, and expect stability. The mind must be trained as a gardener trains the soil, permitting no weeds to take root. This is the discipline. Not to labor in the outer world, straining and scheming for advantage, but to remain faithful inwardly to the state chosen. For the world is but the mirror, and the mirror cannot but reflect what you present before it. Hear these words, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." The heart is the seat of feeling. To think in the heart is to assume with emotion, to embody inwardly what you would outwardly experience. Mere idle wishing is powerless. It is the felt conviction that carries weight. To say, "I am wealthy," while trembling in fear of bills, is to sow contradiction. To say it with calm assurance, to feel the weight of riches already yours, is to sow truth, and the harvest will not tarry. A young woman once desired to sing upon the stage. She had talent, but no opportunities came. She lamented, "No one notices me, no one will give me a chance." Her world reflected her complaint. When she learned the law, she changed her inner confession. Each night before sleep, she imagined herself on stage, bathed in light, hearing the thunder of applause. She felt the joy of accomplishment, the recognition of her gift. She persisted, even when nothing outward changed. Then, in a manner she could never have contrived, she was overheard singing by one who had influence, and doors opened. Within months, she stood upon the very stage she had envisioned. It was not chance but law. She had first dwelt in the state of being a singer celebrated, and the world conformed. Some will ask, is it not deception to assume what is not yet visible? I tell you, it is greater deception to deny the reality of the unseen. For that which is seen is temporal, but that which is unseen is eternal. The visible is but the shadow, the invisible is the substance. To assume wealth in the face of poverty is not deception, it is alignment with substance. To dwell in poverty in the face of wealth already given is the only deception. The law is impartial, it does not care whether you assume noble or base states. If you dwell in resentment, envy, or bitterness, your world will show you cause to resent, envy, and be bitter. If you dwell in gratitude, generosity, and abundance, your world will multiply your joy. The law is the faithful servant, echoing without judgment what the master declares. The question is, what are you declaring within yourself? A man once approached me who had long been a beggar. He believed he was doomed to failure, that others were born lucky while he was born cursed. I asked him to tell me what he said within himself. He answered, "All day I say, I never get a break, nothing works for me, I am a failure." I replied, "Do you not see that your words have power? Change your inward speech, and your world will change." At first he laughed, for he thought words mere sounds. Yet he began timidly to say within himself, "I am successful, I am prospering, I am rising." In time, he not only found work but advanced in it, and his world bore witness to his new assumption. This law is the key to unlimited wealth, for wealth is first a state of mind. One may inherit millions and lose them because inwardly he still feels poor. Another may start with nothing and rise to abundance because inwardly he has clothed himself with riches. The treasure lies not in banks or vaults, but in the mind's atmosphere. Clothe yourself in abundance, and abundance will surround you. Let no one here imagine that persistence is optional. The seed does not sprout because it was thought of once, but because it was planted and watered. To assume a state for a moment and then abandon it is to sow a seed and dig it up each day to see if it grows. Hold fast, water the seed with repetition, clothe it with feeling, protect it from the weeds of doubt. In due season you shall reap, if you faint not. Remember the words, the just shall live by faith. Faith is not begging for what may come. Faith is the bold acceptance of what already is. Faith looks at the empty purse and feels it heavy with gold. Faith looks at the barren field and sees it white unto harvest. Faith does not wait to see, but knows that the unseen governs the seen. And because it knows, it rests. The law does not fail. It cannot fail. But man fails in his application by vacillation, by doubting, by permitting contrary states to intrude. Train the mind as you would train a horse. Do not let it wander into fields of lack. Hold the reins, guide it firmly into the meadow of abundance. In time, it will learn the path and walk it naturally. So I say to you, begin now to examine your inner states. What do you declare when you say, I am? Do you clothe yourself with want or with wealth? Do you speak of failure or of success? Do you imagine lack or possession? The law will echo whatever you present. Choose wisely, persist faithfully, and your world will mirror your choice. Everything that exists in this world, everything that you now call reality, was once only imagined. The chair on which you sit, the clothes you wear, the building that shelters you, even the money that circulates through the hands of men, before any of it took form, it was conceived as an idea. The unseen always precedes the seen, the invisible precedes the visible, and imagination precedes the fact. The tragedy is that man often takes imagination lightly, as though it were but daydreams, when in truth it is the very womb of creation. When the scriptures declare, all things were made through the word, they are telling you a mystery. That word is not sound upon the lips, but feeling clothed in imagination. It is the inner declaration of being, the assumption of identity, the acceptance of a new state. Man speaks this word each time he inwardly accepts something as true of himself. Once spoken, the word cannot return void, but must accomplish the thing sent forth. You may not recall the assumptions you made yesterday or last year, but your life today bears silent witness to them. Every condition you now face was once spoken inwardly by you. There is a story of a young boy who longed for a bicycle, but whose family was too poor to purchase one. The boy did not despair. Each night, before sleep, he imagined the cool handle beneath his hands, the pedals turning beneath his feet, the wind rushing past his face. He felt it with such vividness that in sleep he rode his bicycle through the streets of his imagination. Weeks passed, and one day a neighbor, moving to another city, gave away possessions he no longer needed. Among them was a fine red bicycle. The boy, chosen to receive it, leapt for joy. To the world it seemed mere chance, but to the boy it was the outpicturing of what he had already received inwardly. His assumption had found its way into fact. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. Life does not happen to you. Life happens through you. Every man lives in a state, and that state is his dwelling place. When you feel poor, when you accept yourself as struggling, when you walk as one defeated, you are living in the state of lack, and the world must mirror that state. When you accept yourself as wealthy, when you feel success coursing through your veins, when you move as one secure, you dwell in the state of abundance, and the world reflects abundance back to you. It is law, and law cannot be broken. Think of the mirror once again. No man blames the mirror for showing him a weary face. He knows the mirror only reveals. Yet man blames life for showing him lack, for showing him sickness, for showing him loneliness. He shakes his fist at circumstance, never realizing he is standing before the mirror of reality clothed in the state he despises. Change your face and the mirror must change. Change your state and your world must change. Let us look at a man who worked endlessly but saw little return. He labored more than his fellows, yet money slipped through his hands. He said, "I can never get ahead." This was not merely a complaint, it was his state. He wore it daily, and life confirmed it. I urged him to alter his inner speech, to see himself not as one struggling, but as one in command of money. At first he resisted, for evidence seemed against him. Yet he began each night to picture himself counting large sums, feeling the weight of notes in his hands, hearing the words of friends marveling at his success. Within months, new contracts opened to him, debts were cleared, and wealth began to flow. What had changed? Not the word, only his state. There is power in the words spoken inwardly. When a man says within himself, "I am always unlucky," he binds himself to that state, and life plays it back to him. When another says, "I am always provided for," he binds himself to abundance, and life must echo that song. These words may never pass his lips, yet the silent declaration within him is the lawgiver of his life. A woman once approached me, weeping over her loneliness. She said, "No one loves me, no one notices me." I asked, "What do you whisper to yourself when no one hears? What words fill your heart before sleep?" She confessed that she often repeated, "I am unwanted, I am forgotten." I told her, "That is the prayer you are offering. Change it. Whisper instead, "I am cherished, I am delighted in." Feel what it is to be embraced, to be desired, to be valued. She began, though it felt strange. Yet within weeks, a man she had long admired took notice of her. Soon she was surrounded with affection, courted and loved. Again, the change of state preceded the change of fact. This law spares no one. It is impartial, unyielding, eternal. Just as fire burns whether man understands its nature or not, so this law shapes reality whether man knows it or not. You may say, "But I did not choose this hardship." Yet you chose, perhaps long ago, the state from which it springs. Your world is but your past assumptions pushed out into visibility. The key is this: assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not tomorrow, not when evidence seems ready, but now. If you long for wealth, assume wealth. Walk as one wealthy, not in arrogance but in quiet confidence. Feel money already yours. Imagine paying for things with ease. Imagine generosity flowing from you. Imagine the joy of financial freedom. If you long for health, assume health. Feel vitality as though it already beats through you. Imagine climbing stairs with strength, rising in the morning with energy, living in the body of wellness. If you long for success, assume success. Picture the recognition, hear the praise, feel the thrill of accomplishment. Do not wait for the outer to persuade you. Let the inner persuade the outer. The world calls this foolish, but the world is blind to the order of creation. They say, "I will believe it when I see it." But you are told, believe that you have received, and you shall receive. The outer cannot lead the inner, it is the inner that leads the outer. When you reverse this order, you live in bondage. When you restore it, you live in freedom. Look to the story of a man once called into exile. He dreamed that he walked in a foreign land clothed in honor. Though his outward state was one of captivity, inwardly he lived in freedom. In time, the ruler of that land exalted him, and he sat in places of power. The state within him had preceded the fact of liberation. So it is with you. You need not wait for opportunity, for open doors, for favorable winds. You need only dwell in the state of the one you desire to be. Assume it so fully that you cannot help but feel its reality. Live in it inwardly, and the facts of life will bow before it. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight. The state you occupy is the root, the fact you see is the fruit. No root, no fruit. Change the root, and the fruit must change. And so I say to you, watch carefully where you dwell. For every word spoken inwardly is planting seed. Every assumption is shaping tomorrow. If you would change tomorrow, change the state in which you live today. For the state is the cause, and the fact is its inevitable effect. The world you know is but the outpicturing of the state in which you live. Nothing appears in your life that has not first been assumed within, whether knowingly or unconsciously. Every man is rooted in a state, and that state is the cause of all he experiences. This is the truth hidden behind the words, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." The heart in Scripture is not the organ of flesh, but the seat of feeling, the core of one's assumed identity. Whatever you carry there, whatever you dare to accept as true of yourself, must in time objectify itself in the fabric of your days. The state always precedes the fact. The outer fact is powerless to create the state, but the state is sovereign to create the fact. Many imagine the reverse to be true. They wait for outward evidence before they dare to believe. They say, if only money would appear, then I could feel secure. Or, if only success would come, then I could feel confident. But this is to invert the order of creation. No harvest precedes the sowing of seed. No shadow appears without an object to cast it. The unseen state of wealth, of success, of love, must be assumed within first. Then the world, faithful servant that it is, conforms to that state. Let me tell you of a man who once lived in continual struggle. He longed for prosperity but saw only debts, dreamed of opportunity but found only closed doors. He came to me weary, saying, I am forever trapped in failure. I said to him, my friend, failure is not your prison, it is your state. Shift your dwelling place inwardly and the outer world must follow. Assume success not as a distant dream, but as a present reality, and cling to that assumption. He hesitated, for the evidence mocked him. But he began. Night after night he lay upon his bed and felt himself prosperous. He imagined friends congratulating him, his accounts overflowing, his life transformed. At first it felt strange, even false. But he persisted. Soon he found his mood during the day rising, his outlook changing. Then, in a way he had not foreseen, a forgotten acquaintance introduced him to a business venture. This opportunity prospered, debts vanished, and success clothed him. What had changed? Only his state. The outer fact bowed to the inner assumption. This is the meaning of every parable that speaks of faith. Remember the barren fig tree. It appeared lush in leaf, but bore no fruit, and it withered because its state was barren. Outward beauty is nothing if the inward state is fruitless. Likewise, the mustard seed, though smallest, becomes the mightiest tree when planted in the soil of conviction. It is not the size of your desire, but the firmness of your assumption that determines the harvest. Consider Joseph, who dreamed of dominion even while cast into a pit by his brothers. Though sold into slavery, though confined in prison, inwardly, he lived in the state of rulership. He saw the sheaves bowing to him, the stars doing him homage. Outwardly, he was bound, mocked, forgotten. Inwardly, he was already ruler. And the outer world, bound by law, unfolded until Egypt itself crowned him with authority. Had Joseph judged by appearances, he would have despaired. But he judged by the state within, and the state shaped the facts of history. This law is as true for the least as for the greatest. A woman I knew worked in a modest shop, earning barely enough to sustain herself. She felt trapped, unnoticed, unvalued. I told her, change your state. Do not wait for recognition to make you feel important. Feel yourself valued now. Walk as one esteemed, serve as though your work were a royal appointment. She obeyed. She clothed herself inwardly in dignity and worth. Within weeks, her employer, who had scarcely noticed her before, commended her work, raised her wages, and promoted her. Later, another firm sought her out with an even greater position. Nothing had changed outwardly but her state, yet because the state precedes the fact, the world was compelled to mirror her new assumption. So often man believes his fate is fixed by the outer conditions of his birth, by family, by race, by class, by opportunity seemingly given or withheld. Yet life does not proceed from without to within, but from within to without. There is no prison but a state, no chain but a belief. Break the state and the outer fact dissolves. Assume the state of freedom and freedom will manifest. Assume wealth and wealth will clothe itself in facts. The world cannot resist the inner decree, for it has no life of its own. Think of a mirror. Does it create the face it reflects? No, it only reveals what stands before it. Change the face, and the reflection changes without resistance. Your world is that mirror. It has no power to act, no power to create. It only reflects. Change the state in which you dwell, and the reflection must alter. No pleading with the mirror will change it. You must change the image you present. In like manner, no pleading with life will alter your conditions. You must alter the state in which you live. A young student once told me he longed to pass his examinations, but feared he would fail. I said, "Do not pray to pass while you feel yourself a failure. Enter into the state of one who has already passed. Walk as though the certificate were in your hand, the congratulations already spoken." He did as instructed. Each night he imagined the paper in his hand, the voices saying, "Well done." He persisted until the state felt natural. When the day of testing came, he entered with calm assurance. And when the results were given, he had passed with honor. The state preceded the fact, and the fact bowed to the state. This truth is universal. It applies to wealth, to health, to love, to every desire of the heart. A man in poor health who continually dwells on his weakness is perpetuating his illness by assumption. Another, though beset with pain, inwardly assumes vitality and sees himself well, and his body conforms. The one who feels unloved and dwells in loneliness continues to attract neglect. The one who inwardly feels cherished, who assumes companionship and warmth, finds love flowering around him. It is not chance, it is law. Even nations are but the outpicturing of the states assumed by their people. A people dwelling in fear and resentment will see chaos and oppression. A people dwelling in unity and confidence will see order and prosperity. The state always precedes the fact. The collective outer world is but the reflection of the collective inner assumption. One may ask, but how can I assume what is contrary to everything I see? The answer lies in faith. Faith does not look at what is seen, but at what is unseen. Faith dares to accept as true what reason denies. Faith knows that the state is cause and the fact is effect, and so it clings to the state until the fact appears. This is why we are told, when ye pray, believe that ye have received, and ye shall receive. Believe that you have received, that is, assume the state now. The receiving is the inevitable unfolding of the assumption. Picture a farmer planting seed. He does not wait for the harvest to feel it real. He knows that the unseen seed carries the harvest within it. He waters it, tends it, persists, though no green shoot yet breaks the soil. He rests in the assurance that what he has sown, he shall reap. So too with you. The state is the seed. Sow it in imagination, water it with persistence, clothe it with feeling, and in due season the fact must appear. Remember always, the fact cannot precede the state. To wait for money before assuming wealth is to wait for harvest before sowing. To wait for recognition before assuming worth is to wait for reflection before standing before the mirror. Begin now, where you are, with what you have. Assume the state of the one you long to be, and remain faithful to it. The world will mirror your assumption, for it has no other choice. I recall another story. A man had lost his position and despaired of ever finding employment again. He said, "No one will hire me. I am too old. I am forgotten." I said, "That is the state you have assumed, and so your word shows it. Change your state. See yourself employed, useful, sought after." He obeyed reluctantly, for the evidence was against him. But he began to imagine each night that he was leaving his office after a day's work, feeling the satisfaction of usefulness. Within a few weeks, he was approached unexpectedly with a position perfectly suited to him. He marveled, but I told him it was inevitable. The state had preceded the fact. Thus, the key is not in forcing the outer world, but in assuming inwardly. Stop striving outwardly and begin dwelling inwardly. For the outer is dead until the inner breathes life into it. All the effort in the world will not change the reflection until the image changes. All the pleading in the world will not change the fact until the state changes. So tonight, I say to you, watch your states. For though you may forget the details of your thoughts, your world will remind you. The life you live is the silent witness to the state you dwell in. Do not curse the world for showing you lack. Change your dwelling place within, and the world will show you abundance. Do not resent circumstances for binding you. Assume freedom, and circumstances will break. For the state always precedes the fact, and the fact always follows the state. Man has been taught from childhood to rely upon outer effort, to depend upon visible means, to seek evidence in the world before believing in his own success. He has been told that hard work, long hours, and struggle are the true conditions for wealth and achievement. Yet, in the quiet of his own heart, he often discovers that effort alone produces little, and many who labor most never rise beyond scarcity. If outward labor were the secret of abundance, then those who toil day and night would be the richest among men. But we know this is not so. The mystery lies deeper, in a place unseen by the eye yet nearer than breathing. It is within the imagination of man where all true wealth is born. There exists a law, constant and unwavering, which decrees that man's inward assumption shapes his outer experience. To assume wealth, to feel rich, to live inwardly in the freedom of abundance, this is to establish the cause from which riches flow. No man can escape this law, for life itself is its witness. A beggar who inwardly sees himself forever a beggar will find his world supporting that belief. A prince who assumes his royalty, even when stripped of all possessions, will in time find circumstance restoring his crown. The state one occupies is the only key that opens the doors of wealth. There was once a man who lived in continual poverty. He struggled for wages, counted every coin, and feared the arrival of bills. He believed that wealth belonged only to a fortunate few. One evening, weary of his endless struggle, he began to imagine differently. He pictured himself receiving money with ease. He felt the relief of debts paid, the joy of unexpected income, the security of a growing bank balance. Though outwardly nothing changed that night, inwardly he stepped into the state of wealth. Within months, he received a promotion he had never anticipated, and opportunities opened to him from directions he had not even considered. His outward life followed the inward assumption, as shadow follows substance. The outer world is but a reflection. A man standing before a mirror cannot frown and expect a smile in return. He cannot appear ragged and demand the mirror clothe him in finery. Yet this is what most men do with life. They look upon lack and dwell upon it. They feel small and expect the world to enlarge them. They worry over bills and expect abundance to arrive. They do not see that their inner speech, their feelings of being, are already decreeing the facts to come. To assume wealth is not to deceive oneself, it is to align with the creative law of the universe. When a seed is planted in soil, no man sees the tree immediately, but he knows the harvest is certain. In the same way, when you assume the feeling of wealth, you have planted the seed. The facts may take time to emerge, but emerge they must, for law is infallible. You do not dig up the seed each day to check if it grows. You rest in the certainty of its unfolding. So too must you rest in the feeling of already being rich. A woman once shared her story. She was a clerk earning little, and each day she dreaded the monotony of her work. She longed for freedom, but could see no way. One night she began to dwell in a new vision. She saw herself walking through a spacious home, decorated as she desired. She imagined writing checks without fear, giving gifts generously, and traveling freely. She did not know how it could be, but she felt it real each night before sleep. In less than a year, she was invited into a business partnership, an offer that came unexpectedly, and with it came the means to live the life she had imagined. The world called it coincidence, but she knew it was the law in action. The power lies not in asking, "How will it happen?" but in assuming, "It is already so." When you say inwardly, "I am wealthy," you must feel it as truth, not as a wish. It is not to be repeated as empty words, but to be embraced with the conviction that it is already yours. This inner acceptance clothes you in the state of wealth, and once clothed, the world cannot help but reflect it. Consider the ancient words, "To him that hath, more shall be given." This is not an injustice, but the outworking of the law of assumption. He that hath, meaning he who already possesses inwardly, shall receive outwardly. He that hath not, meaning he who denies possession within, shall lose even the little he outwardly holds. Wealth is not a gift bestowed at random, nor is poverty a punishment without cause. Both are the fruit of the states men occupy. There was once a traveler who, though he had little, always carried himself with dignity and assurance. He spoke as one prosperous, he moved as one confident, and others treated him as such. In time, doors opened, opportunities came, and riches flowed to him. Another man, though born to riches, lived in constant fear of loss, imagining ruin at every turn. His fear was his assumption, and soon he squandered his fortune, living out the poverty he had so long embraced inwardly. One assumed wealth, the other assumed lack, and each fulfilled his own decree. Do not say, "I will be wealthy when I see money in my account." Rather say, "I am wealthy now," and feel it as though it were already true. Imagine the scene that would imply it, the laughter of friends congratulating you, the comfort of paying every expense with ease, the gratitude of helping others without strain. Rest in these scenes until they feel natural. Life will rearrange itself to mirror your assumption. Some will protest, saying, "But I cannot lie to myself. I know I am poor." Yet is it not true that you have often assumed fear and seen it come to pass? Did you not once dread an outcome, picture it vividly, and then behold it in fact? Was that not also an assumption? If you can assume fear and see it fulfilled, why not assume wealth and see that fulfilled? Both are products of the same law. A man once said, "I never have enough." He repeated it often in jest and in seriousness, and soon it became his reality. Bills grew larger, income seemed smaller, and lack followed him everywhere. Another man, though earning no more than he, began to say, "I always have plenty." He imagined money coming from unexpected sources. He pictured himself secure, and in time his finances improved, opportunities multiplied, and he lived in abundance. Each man bore witness to the law, though one used it to bind himself to lack, and the other to liberate himself into wealth. This law is no respecter of persons. It will not favor the educated over the unlearned, the rich over the poor, the strong over the weak. It responds only to assumption. Whoever assumes wealth will experience wealth. Whoever assumes lack will experience lack. The world is but the mirror, and you are the cause. To assume wealth does not mean to abandon all action, but it means action flows from a new center. When you feel yourself wealthy, ideas arise, inspiration comes, boldness moves you where once you hesitated. The wealthy state produces wealthy thoughts, and wealthy thoughts produce wealthy acts. But these acts are effortless, joyful, and natural, unlike the strained labor of one who works from fear. Think of the actor who, upon the stage, assumes the role of a king. Though his garments be but cloth and his crown but ornament, he feels the dignity of kingship. He moves with authority, he speaks with command. The audience responds, forgetting the actor, seeing only the king. If he can assume kingship upon the stage and convince a whole audience, can you not assume wealth in the stage of imagination and convince life itself? There was a merchant who long dreamed of expanding his trade, but feared failure. He lived small, acted cautiously, and gained little. At last he began to assume success. He pictured his shops thriving, customers filling the aisles, profits increasing. He felt the pride of achievement, the satisfaction of growth. Soon he took bold steps, inspired by his new state, and his business flourished. His wealth was the outpicturing of his inward assumption. The truth remains, wealth is not created by effort alone, but by the assumption that you already are wealthy. Hold fast to this inward conviction, and the facts will surely follow, as surely as night follows day. Man often measures his life by what the senses record. He calls real only that which he can touch with his hands, see with his eyes, hear with his ears, and count with his numbers. He believes reality is fixed, immovable, and independent of his inward being. Yet, those who live by appearances alone are prisoners of shadows. They are bound by what is already expressed, and so they remain in the circle of repetition. To break free from this circle, one must awaken to the truth that imagination creates reality, that inner vision precedes outer fact, and that to change one's world, one need only change the assumption from which he lives. Every condition of life, whether wealth or poverty, health or sickness, joy or sorrow, is the outward embodiment of a state once assumed. The unseen is the parent of the seen. When the farmer casts his seed into the earth, the field appears barren, but in secret the seed germinates, draws to itself the unseen life of the soil, and in due season pushes upward into form. So it is with every thought assumed in the stillness of mind. Though no evidence appears immediately, the world, by law, must clothe itself with the seeds sown in imagination. Man forgets this law and therefore calls his condition fate, accident, or chance. He looks at poverty and says, "It is my lot." He beholds sickness and says, "It is the will of God." He sees himself small and insignificant and believes he was destined to be so. But if he would turn within and recognize that all outer conditions are but shadows cast by inner states, he would see that no fate holds him, no accident can bind him, no condition is final. What he assumes to be true of himself, that alone determines his portion. A young student once longed for success, but felt trapped by his circumstances. His family was poor, opportunities seemed scarce, and he believed others were more qualified. Yet he began nightly to imagine his life as though his success were already secured. He pictured himself walking confidently, speaking with assurance, being sought after for his skills. He felt what it would be like to live in that place of honor. He persisted in this inner vision, though outwardly nothing changed. Then, seemingly by chance, he was introduced to a man who offered him a position beyond anything he had ever hoped. His success was not chance, but the fruit of his inner assumption. The law is impartial. Whether you plant seeds of fear or seeds of hope, the harvest must match the seed. A man who continually assumes failure cannot escape it, for he has bound himself to that state. Another who assumes wealth, even while outwardly poor, must in time see wealth expressed, for the law works without respect of persons. This is why the great teacher once said, "As a man believes in his heart, so is he." Belief of the heart is not mere words spoken lightly. It is the deep assumption of being which one accepts inwardly. When you assume a state, you clothe yourself in its reality. The world, though slow to catch up, cannot resist your garment. If you wear the state of abundance inwardly, the facts of life must, in their own season, acknowledge it. If you persist in wearing the garment of lack, no outward striving can free you from it until you change the state within. There was a woman who lived in continual worry over her finances. She clipped coupons, counted pennies, and lived in fear of every expense. Yet she decided one day to change her inner life. Each night she sat quietly and imagined writing checks with ease, feeling gratitude as bills were paid, seeing herself giving gifts without strain. Though her bank account remained small, she persisted in this assumption. Slowly, opportunities for work opened, unexpected money came, and her finances expanded until her outward life matched the inward state she had chosen. She did not labor harder. She only changed the assumption from which she lived. Some will ask, how can mere imagination create reality? Consider the architect. Before a stone is laid, he conceives the building in imagination. He draws its form, measures its height, and decides its structure, though nothing yet exists in fact. To the casual observer, the empty land is reality. But to the architect, the true building already stands in his mind. He sees what others cannot see, and in time, his vision solidifies into form. Life itself is the grand architect, and your imagination is the blueprint. Whatever you hold in feeling as true will one day appear as fact. Man errs by assuming only what his senses report. He believes in lack because he sees an empty purse. He believes in sickness because he feels pain. He believes in rejection because he hears the words of others. But to live by senses alone is to live enslaved. To live by assumption is to live free. The senses may deny the wealth you imagine, but if you hold fast, the wealth must come, for the senses are only servants of your assumption. There was once a teacher who told his students, begin where you are. Close your eyes and imagine yourself already in possession of what you desire. Do not concern yourself with how it will come, for the how is not your concern. Simply persist in the end until it feels real. One of his students desired a home but had little money. Night after night he walked through the rooms of his dream home in imagination. He touched the furniture, admired the windows, and felt the joy of ownership. Months later, through a series of events he could not have planned, he was offered a home under circumstances so favorable that he could afford it with ease. His inner vision had gone before him, preparing the way. Every man lives in a state, though he may not know it. He may live in the state of freedom or the state of bondage, in the state of health or the state of sickness, in the state of wealth or the state of poverty. To change your state is to change your life. No man need remain in the state he dislikes, for assumption is the doorway to all states. Step into the state you desire by feeling it real, and the world will conform. Consider the story of two merchants. One, though he sold fine goods, constantly assumed loss. He feared customers would not pay, believed competitors would overtake him, and expected failure. His business dwindled until he closed his doors. The other merchant, though selling similar goods, assumed prosperity. He imagined customers filling his shop, felt the delight of profits, and expected increase. His business flourished, and he became wealthy. Both men lived under the same conditions, but their assumptions determined their results. When you assume a new state, you need not fight against the old. Simply withdraw attention from what you no longer desire and feed the vision of what you do. What you ignore will wither, and what you feed will grow. As the scripture says, choose this day whom you will serve. Serve the state you wish to see expressed, and the old will fade of itself. One man desired to be free of debt. Instead of fretting over his bills, he began to imagine himself debt-free. He saw himself receiving letters of cleared accounts, heard the voice of friends congratulating him, and felt the relief of freedom. He persisted until it seemed natural. In time, opportunities came for increased income, unexpected gifts arrived, and his debts were cleared. His freedom was not the result of worry or striving, but of assumption. Another man was ill for many years. He identified himself with sickness, spoke of his condition continually, and assumed it was his destiny. But one day, he began to imagine himself strong and whole. He walked in imagination as a healthy man, ate with appetite, worked with energy, and enjoyed the pleasures of life. Though his body at first resisted, he persisted in the state of health. In time, his body yielded, and health became his reality. The power lies not in effort, but in assumption. When you assume, you create the cause. The world is only the effect. Do not ask the effect to change itself. Change the cause within, and the effect will follow. Have you noticed how easily children assume? A child takes a stick and calls it a sword, and at once he is a knight. He ties a cloth about his shoulders and declares himself a king, and he rules his imaginary realm with confidence. He does not question how it will come to pass, nor does he doubt the reality of his play. He simply assumes, and for him it is so. This is the secret of creation. To assume with the innocence of a child, man must return to this childlike faith, for only then can he enter the kingdom of his desires. To assume wealth, health, freedom, or joy with the simplicity of a child is to call it forth from the unseen into the seen. Doubt is the enemy of assumption, but faith holds fast until the facts bow to its decree. There was once a widow who feared poverty after her husband's death. Yet she began to assume inwardly that she was provided for. She pictured herself secure, her needs supplied, her life abundant. Though she had no visible source of income, within a short time she received an inheritance she had not expected, and with it came peace and security. Her assumption of provision clothed her world with the very thing she imagined. So man must choose daily which garment to wear. He may clothe himself in fear, and life will dress him in hardship. He may clothe himself in wealth, and life will cover him with abundance. The garment you wear is the assumption you hold, and the world must mirror it without fail. Therefore, let every man and woman take to heart this eternal truth: life bends itself to the image held within. The world is not a tyrant set against you, but a faithful mirror, reflecting only that which you dare to assume. To live in lack is to accept lack within. To live in abundance is to quietly, boldly, and persistently claim abundance as your natural state. Nothing stands between you and the fulfillment of your desire except the belief that you cannot have it. The moment you shift the inner feeling, the outer world begins to rearrange itself in obedience to your vision. You are not a victim of chance, nor a creature bound by fate. You are the one who chooses the state in which you dwell. Every circumstance of your life is but the shadow cast by an inward assumption, and by changing that assumption, the shadow must take on a new form. So walk now in the awareness of the end you desire. Live from it, breathe in it, feel it as real, and let it saturate your being until it becomes the only truth you know. Then wait in faith, for the harvest is certain, and the world must, by law, reveal the likeness of your inner claim.